So today I'm going to be going over chapters 7 and 8 together. Chapter 9 I'm thinking I'm going to do separately, and I might be eliciting the help of some of my coworkers, some of my cute little team members, my children. But anyway, so chapter 7 is entitled You Have to Know What's Important to You. And so for me, this chapter was really important in reaffirming this whole idea that yes, you are a servant leader, but you also need to understand who you are as a person so that you can best serve your specific communities. For example, if you are trying to fight for animals' rights, but you are a devout meat eater, there's a contradiction between your actions and what your beliefs are. So for me, it's important to know what's important to you, not only to frame kind of like work as life framework or like life guiding principles, but also to make sure that you're not coming in direct conflict between your actions and what your beliefs are. So actually on the very first page in chapter 7 you have this quote that I really like, from Olivia Lay, and she says that basically becoming a leader is a process of internal self-discovery. And for me this semester, this concept has been really important because I've been kind of like avoiding including, as Eliza Schuyler says in the Great Hamilton musical, I am erasing myself from the narrative. So I've been like erasing myself from the narrative. I haven't wanted to put myself fully into any specific thing or any niche or whatever, out of fear of social suicide is what we call it in education speak, because I didn't want to be isolated from any one community, and I didn't want to seem like too much of a polarizing factor or force or what have you. But in doing so, I realized over the past 3-ish years that I have accomplished nothing. I've accomplished things, sure, but I haven't really accomplished too much in my college experience, which is sad because like I do have values and I stand for certain things. So I should pursue those. Like it's okay to pursue those. It's okay to have my own opinions about things. So clear values, increase engagement is a subsection, a subtitle of another section. And I thought that was important, and I'm going to relate it back to my work experience, because at work right now we're working on like I've titled it a back to basics program, but basically the issue is we didn't solidify what the culture of my work environment was, which is this idea that, oh, we're all a family. So now when I'm asking my kids, my team members, to do certain things, they're like, oh, but why? And I don't care, and it's not important, and all these different excuses. And I'm like, yeah, that's not the culture. So they're not able to really engage in the way that I want them to engage with their work experience because we don't have the culture or the clear guidelines set up. So I should include in here. Let me make that note real quick. Include the Back to Basics program in my reflection. But basically, like if you don't have a clear path that you're following, it's really hard to give your all to any one thing because you're like, I don't know where I'm going. It's like you're not going to start running where you have blindfolds on. That doesn't make any sense. So that's what I thought about that section. I didn't think too much about the rest of the sections in this book, not gonna lie. About in this chapter, I mean. The assignment for this chapter is write a memo about your beliefs, values, how to work together, and how to deal with conflict. So, for me, I'll start with what my beliefs are. My biggest belief is freedom, and I'll explain more in depth as I go along. But my overarching theme in life is freedom. My two top values are equity and justice. And so I've always had a really strong sense of justice ever since growing up, and equity is just like almost a synonym for justice. Like if you are equitable, you're being just in your actions. I think. Now, when we get into this idea of conflict, I say openly listen openly, and do your research. And then when working with a team, always have the mindset of love and growth. So basically, how do all 4 of these little mini memos go together? Freedom gives people the opportunity to express who they are as individuals, and these diverse perspectives that we have will help us better the society as a whole, right? So then, if you value equity and justice, then you're not going to disenfranchise any certain people or any certain group of people from being able to authentically interact with the world around them, and you're going to allow them to prosper as individuals, and then the community is going to prosper because you have so many individuals in it prospering all at once, and then the society, and it keeps spiral effect. Conflict, then you have to listen openly with conflict, because it is with these diverse different ideas that we are able to come to newer conclusions. I was just reading a book, it's right here, The Autobiography of a Black Militant and the Life and Death of SNCC. And basically, a SNCC, which is the Student Nonviolence Coordinating Community back from the 50s and 60s with the Civil Rights Movement, basically within their group they had like a bunch of different conflicting and diverse ideas, but they were able to come to like whole new conclusions because they just sat down and openly listened to what the other person had to say or what the other side had to say, and then they did their research on it. Like they they read books, they talked to other people who've lived certain experiences, and then they were able to come back with like newer understandings, or a more cohesive understanding. And then when you're working together, you have to maintain this idea of love and growth. So when you're working with people, it's really easy to get into like, oh, well, I think this, and this is my niche, and this is what I'm doing, and really just focus on yourself. But if you're focusing on the organization or the group or whatever, then you also have to focus on the growth of the group. Otherwise, you're not going to advance. You're going to become very stagnant, and in terms of competing with other people or other groups, you're going to fall behind because you've stayed in the same place. And then incorporating love with that. If you love somebody, you're not going to hurt them. You're going to say what they need to hear, but it's not going to be with the intent of hurting them. It's going to be with the intent that they grow as an individual. So that's why all four of those things kind of go together for this chapter, because for myself, I have to be able to identify what my guiding principles are in life, what my guiding principles in life are, in order to like form my team or whatever. Because if I don't know what my values are, I'm just going to go around meeting a bunch of random people, be like, hey, wow, you want to be friends? Instead of it being like, not strategic, because that sounds a little manipulative, but like, I'm not meeting people who are in line with what my life passions are. So, chapter 8, it's called Who You Are Isn't Who You Will Be. And this was an important chapter for me, because I've struggled, hold on, I wrote it down, like, in the back of the chapter. I've struggled with this idea of, like, change and whatnot, and this chapter kind of says, oh, it's okay to change, doesn't, like, I'll quote it directly. It's okay to change. It doesn't discredit who you were. It just no longer fits who you are becoming. So, like, you have to consistently change in order to consistently grow, which goes back to chapter 7 and this whole idea of growth. That's like the biggest thing that I got from this chapter. Like, you're gonna start here, you're gonna go here, you might go back here, you might go forward here, and that's okay because it's a part of your journey, which is cool. The questions in chapter 8 are, what do you hope others will say about you, and how do you hope other people remember you on this day? So I said that I hope people remember me as like a fire, like I'm really energetic, I'm a fire sign, I'm a Leo, and that I light up their lives, and that I've loved them authentically, especially when I'm dealing with all my high school kids at work. Like, they don't have a lot of their social needs being met at school or at home or whatever, so I like being able to go to them and be like, hey, how's your day going? I love you so much. I say that to them like every time I see my kids, which is cool because, they get it reinforced a lot. Like, yeah, you're valid, you're cool, and I see you. It's awesome. And then how do I hope people remember me on this day specifically? Well, I'm going to go stop by work and visit my children because I have one of my newer kids on custard and he was freaking out. And I told him I would stop by and see him. So I hope other people on this day specifically will remember that I cared quite a lot about all these different people. that I cared a lot about my different passions in life, my guiding principles, that I cared a lot about growth, and that my academics and this pursuit of justice that I keep talking about. So that's basically what I took from these last two chapters. Yeah.